The United States Environmental Protection Agency defines land use as the human use of land and our economic and cultural activities that are practiced at a given place. Whether this be agricultural, residential, commercial, industrial, or recreational uses, they all interact and impact one another. Land use is generally a function of laws, policies, and management decisions on a local level. These decisions are difficult to delineate, much less predict any long-term impacts they have relative to each other. The Focus 2030 Comprehensive Plan sets out to take up this difficult balance of managing our land use while accommodating for the tremendous growth happening in Warren County. The community must consider a balance of goals and objectives when making land use decisions that will impact our community for decades and generations to come. Join us as we review our future land use goals and objectives and discuss some of the factors influencing land use in our community. Learn what the Comprehensive Plan says are the important issues that board members, planning commissioners, and elected officials in our community should consider when making land use decisions that affect both the present and the future. Taking a look at Session 9, our future land use element. Just want to remind you of some session resources that we have on our website. We'll look at reviewing parts of Session 2. Trends and statistics might be helpful to see the growth we've got going on, as well as compare some of the trends and statistics from just a couple of years ago, really, to today. We've updated a few things on these slides. Our 2012 Comprehensive Plan video does a good job of explaining how the Comprehensive Plan was created and focuses a lot on the future land use element and the future land use map. Previous Comprehensive Plan 1990 did not have a future land use map. This one does. So there's some differences there. The Citizen's Guide to Future Land Use Planning is also a great resource. We have it electronically, electronically on our web. It goes through and explains future land use map and planning and how all of that's put together, so it's a good resource. And then lastly, we have our planning and zoning web map. We have a future land use layer on that planning and zoning web map, and there's the link there for you to access that directly, and you can see what the future land use looks like. You may have to scroll in or zoom in to closer to the county to get that to turn on. So taking some of the themes from the 2012 Comprehensive Plan video, one of the concepts out of that is how to make sure developments are stitched together in an integrated community. We want all elements of the Comprehensive Plan, goals and objectives, working together to get that community stitched together in a fashion that we all want to have. So to do that, you got to think beyond the latest hot trend. What is hot in the market today wasn't the hot thing 5 years ago, won't be the hot thing in 5 years. So we got to think beyond that and think long term through the year 2030 and do what's best for the community. So one relationship that we want to call out is the relationship between land use and public facilities. And growth follows sewer. I think we've established that. Infrastructure is a tool to help shape that growth. So examples of that in the past, these are a little bit older maps. I think they were done around 2017 when we did the 2017 comp plan. But what you see with this black outline is the limits of our sewer boundaries plus 2,000 feet. So it's a 2,000 foot sewer buffer. And then you'll see that the yellow, which is our residential, low density residential, generally follows these sewer lines. The projected growth in residential generally follows the sewer lines. Since this map was created, we're probably extended a little farther out Nashville Road, a little farther out Plano Road, a little farther out Scottsville Road. But in general, the growth is projected to follow sewer. and then fill in between those major corridors leading out of the middle of the city, as well as follow kind of that I-65 Louisville Road corridor. So looking at what we have for this is the same information, same map. So in this case, the blue is the sewer plus the buffer. You see this dotted line is our urbanized area. But the green, really all we want to show here is that the green residential developments are generally following the sewer lines. Again, while this map's a little dated, you'd see some more green dots a little further out, and especially in the Plano, Alton, Richpond areas, and in Rockfield as well. But generally that growth is following sewer. So again, that principle is holding true, and a lot of our comprehensive plan, again, is having that development follow that infrastructure and those sewer lines. It's how we try to stay mostly compact. So one of the questions we get is how often should the future land use map be amended? And generally it's every 5 years with the comp plan review cycle, which is what we're doing now. We're at the 10-year mark, so we reviewed it in 2017. We made some changes to the future land use element. Now we're in the 10-year kind of half-time cycle, and we're reviewing it again. And then it's when the Planning Commission feels like it needs to be amended based on LU 114. And you can look at that. We'll talk a little bit about it in a minute. But it basically is 3 factors. When there's an overriding public benefit of the development, so like a very large commercial development or maybe a new industrial park or something like that, we should look at amending at that point. Correction of inconsistencies or future land use mapping errors. So made a mistake, didn't quite get it right, so we are going to correct that. The map didn't quite reflect the character of the area, so it needs to be changed. And then the third is the one that is mostly used in front of the Planning Commission, often in conjunction with a zone change. It's when the proposed use is clearly compatible with the existing surrounding development as demonstrated by the applicant. And of course, we may all have different views of what's clearly compatible, but ultimately the decision makers are the planning commissioners and the legislative bodies. So future land use map amendments, how many have we had? You can see the numbers there from 2017 to 2021. It's the last 5 years worth of data. The number has increased. It's up and down, but it's generally going with the flow. So 2017 was our previous highest year of activity and zone changes, followed by 2020, and then 2021, then 2020, and then 2022. It looks like we may beat all of those, but generally the number has increased, typically consistent with the number of percentages approved versus denied. But what we try to focus on is less on the number of changes and more on why the map is being amended. So what types of developments are being approved along with a future land use map amendment, and what are the reasons why. Looking at some updated statistics, so the Quick Facts 2010 was taken out of our current version of comprehensive plan. Quick Facts 2022, we've updated those and are proposing that as part of our amendments. Just won't read all those to you, but basically the densities increased in both Warren County and Bowling Green. Agricultural land did decrease by 5% over that 12-year period of time. That's actually a little lower percentage than I was anticipating, but still not great for those who want to preserve farmland. And then residential lands increased by 2.4%. Again, most of that agricultural land is taken by the residential. And then one thing we want to mention is that discrepancies are likely to exist by a couple percentage points, just because we have better mapping records, more accurate data now than we did in 2010. Looking at our other updated statistics, two tables again straight out of the 2010 versus what we have updated, you'll see that the actual number of acres constituting that 5% loss to agricultural land, that increase in the single family residential. One thing I will point out is that our multifamily residential did not go up a whole lot, few acres. And one thing we are doing, even with both single family and multifamilies, we're building more dense. Again, building more dense and building where we have existing most sewer infrastructure, all utilities, but sewers is usually a driving factor. So the growth is generally being driven where there are sewer lines, and it is generally more dense than it has been in the past as we get more and more people moving to Warren County. Commercial land hasn't went up that much, just 0.1%. I would say that will probably remain fairly steady. We'll see some jumps as time moves on and we just get more and more people, but the amount of retail and even office space is generally down nationwide, and that trend is expected to continue. Institutional and government was combined and for the 2022 table, so that's a difference there, but that's remained relatively the same. Any difference there is maybe a little bit of added park lands. The industrial lands have went up. That is understandable as Transpart expands and we get further industrial expansion of the south area north of the South Industrial Park, if that makes sense. So expands from the South Industrial Park along Nashville Road towards Russellville Road. We'll get more industrial development there. And vacant land is actually more, but a lot of that is probably attributed to the better record keeping. I don't think that we actually necessarily have more vacant land than we did in 2010. So again, our ag land decreased, our single family land increased, but multifamily had a slight increase, but it's more dense. Single family is more dense as we build denser developments, and then our industrial lands have increased. So moving on to look at our goals and objectives for future land use, and this is probably our lengthiest chapter. There's much more than we're going to go over. Most of those are action items to go along with the objectives. But land use goal 1 was to create a framework to manage growth and promote sustainable, balanced, and predictable patterns of land use consistent with the ability to provide adequate public services and facilities. The objective LU11 is upon plan adoption, utilize the future land use map to guide decision making regarding land uses and development proposals. So as I stated earlier, the 1990 plan, the plan previous to the Focus 2030 plan we have now, did not have a future land use map. So this is kind of establishing that future land use map and tying reviews of zone changes to that future land use map that we now have here. So action items under this objective included the future land use categories and descriptions, and this is one of the main tests that or review analysis that staff does when contemplating development review decisions and proposed land use decisions. Number 1, does it meet the future land use map and fit in within that category? And then this objective also outlines criteria for amending the future land use map. And we went over those 3 a little bit earlier. So land use goal 2 is to encourage compact, sustainable, high-quality development which protects community character, provides balanced land uses, and which is tailored to the variety of urban, suburban, and rural sections of Warren County. This one contains this goal. Under this goal contains the rest of the evaluation criteria, our civil review, architectural review, and any small area plans we have. But LU 212223 we'll go over real quick. Improving design standards, establish incentives for urban and suburban residential development. That's mostly done through development plan conditions, formerly known as binding elements. Modify our zoning regulations to better promote compact mixed-use development and traditional neighborhood development. Focus a lot on mixed-use development. Certainly seeing a lot more of that here lately. Traditional neighborhood development would be building new stuff like the old. So think areas of downtowns, more front porches, more sidewalks, more mixed use. You can walk within walking distance of commercial centers, those types of things. Upgrade design standards for commercial industrial development. Again, that's mostly done through development plan conditions or binding elements. Continuing on under Land Use Goal 2, Objective 2.4 is to establish a consistent sector, small area planning process to focus on areas of the county or the city that require special attention and a more detailed level of planning. We have several of these, although we certainly need to be more consistent with it and expand kind of our neighborhood or small area planning through this process. And unfortunately, as a result of the tornado, we did a little more, I guess, a micro scale or a neighborhood planning on the surface, but we certainly need a lot more effort into actual neighborhood planning and placemaking. We do plan on focusing on our existing plans as part of this review process, but due to the tornado, that will be delayed till next year. Stabilize and protect Bowling Green's older neighborhoods. Again, as a result of the tornado, we were able to do that for about 5 or 6 neighborhoods. We will, as part of our recommendations on the future land use map, look at some of our areas of neighborhoods that are single family in character but are zoned multifamily, and look at altering a few of those, and then continue the process of analyzing hopefully next year, as soon as next year, and look at having zoning match the character of those neighborhoods. 2.6, consider revisions to zoning regulations to promote alternatives to large lot sprawl in rural area. We've done that in 2017 and really changed and tried to add bonuses for conservation style subdivisions. Have been largely unsuccessful to this point on that. Objective 2.7, consider potentially available resources to pursue a purchase of development rights program in Warren County. I do believe this is something the community should pursue, though I'm not sure who would lead this effort at this point, but purchase of development rights could go a long way in helping preserve farmland in certain areas of the county. If we had a community trust or something like that established, maybe managed by a nonprofit, would be able to purchase development rights from property owners, which would allow it to continue to be farmed. Objective LU 2.8, continue to apply selected policies established in prior focal point plans, overlay districts, and particularly those pertaining to the smaller incorporated cities and corridors. As I mentioned earlier, we will continue that process starting at the first of the year. We do plan on going to Oakland, Plum Springs, Woodburn, and Smiths Grove to do a more focused session with them. We don't feel like we have enough time to give them their proper due at this point in getting this plan reestablished, but we will do that and make any tweaks that are necessary hopefully next year. Objective LU 2.9, identify techniques to protect the county's small municipalities and rural settlements. That's development that is out of character. Goes along with 2.8. And then 2.10, identify and designate special character areas such as scenic roads and view sheds for protection. Again, need to pay more attention to those types of plans, and certainly look at a couple of our corridors. We've most recently done Scottsville Road corridor, though it probably didn't go out far enough, and then we've done Plano, the Plano community as well. But we do need to look at other areas of the county. Some of the concepts we're looking at moving forward for our recommended changes. We want to figure out a way to reduce the number of future land use map amendments. We have some ideas on how to accomplish that. We want to continue to allow for growth where infrastructure already exists or is nearby. Again, we're fairly successful at that, and we want to make sure that continues to happen where we have that existing infrastructure. We want to keep an adequate supply of industrial land available where infrastructure exists. We want to keep as much farmland and natural areas designated agriculture as possible. Again, that community trust may be able to help in that if we can figure out a way to get that going. And then we need to pay attention to where we put our sewer and our other utility infrastructure. And then we want to protect the character of existing single-family neighborhoods and make sure we look at small area plans. So that pretty much concludes the future land use element. We do have a public forum scheduled for Monday, October 17th at 5:30 p.m. the Neighborhood Community Services Building, 701 East Main Avenue. So please submit any questions you have for us before that. We will probably do something a little different. We'll probably go ahead and bring some of the ideas and tweaks to the future land use element that we're thinking, as well as take a look at the future land use map and look at some of the areas we're looking at making some changes to, and of course take questions and public input on that. Thank you for your time.